I will assume that Julia just finished. My computer died while I was sitting here and happily clapping and swaying and doing whatever. And I had neglected to notice that the cord had come up. But all is good now. And if I go away, I'll come back, I promise. And I am not going to preach for the order of service. Let's get arranged. And now we can start. I enjoy music that's fun. I hope you all had a good time there. Some thoughts on love. Before I stray into concepts and visions and broader thoughts, let me start by being personal. My own relationship with love neither glitters nor brings despair. In truth, it can be seen as rather mundane, as such stories go. But finding love, learning to love, and appreciating love was not easy for me. As you might expect, it all began with my home life as a child. I grew up in a stable and supportive family, and my parents did so many things right. They saw each of their 3 children as individuals, and they engaged us at the level of our interests, and they appreciated our differences fully. We were loved and cared for and given the space to thrive and grow as individual people. And it shows today. Both my older sister and my younger brother have grown into people who I feel at least are both successful and likable. But as we grew from childhood into adulthood, all 3 of us had to find ways to overcome our inexperience with overt affection and emotional connection. Feelings were never big in my home. It was a touch stoic. Emotions were reserved. Ideas and actions were what tied us together. Almost no physical affection and no effusive feelings. I'm not going to try to guess why. That would involve psychoanalyzing my parents, which is quite a deep issue. But so as I stumbled into the territory of romantic connection and relationship on my own, I felt lost with little understanding of what was going on. I recognized attraction well enough, but I had little notion of romantic empathy or mutuality with another person. I became tongue-tied because I had little understanding of what might be and no vocabulary to ask the questions that might have helped me find answers. There might have been some embarrassment or shame, but mostly it was due to my incompetence and no specific ill. I could not speak of love, and I didn't know how to manage the discomfort and conflicts that invariably emerged because of that. When it came to questions of love, I indeed was a babe in the woods. Now, I imagine this might ring true to many of us here, and I was fortunate that my childhood was fundamentally good. I never suffered harm, or I was not damaged in the ways that some children from troubled families were. My ability to trust stayed intact. I did not expect pain or feel shame and think that that was what was normal. A big part of coming of age for me was indeed learning that other people I knew were carrying wounds from an absence of love or a schizoid version of love that they had experienced in their youth. Emotional learning was not easy. Most expectations I gleaned from popular culture sources were not helpful, and they were almost all uncomfortably grounded in sex roles and patriarchy that didn't feel right. It was quite easy to learn about sex and sexuality. There were self-help manuals and classes that covered even the most arcane aspects of that. But there were no classes in how to love. I just felt it was something I wanted. I was pretty mixed up for many years, and I did harm to myself and others more than I would like to recall. But I did persevere, and I'm still a bit challenged at times, but I married a good teacher, and we raised 2 children in a home where love, emotions, and feelings were expressed overtly and often. I became far more comfortable with my own heart and much better prepared to open it to sharing with others. Love is so many things. And as the poem by Margaret Atwood that Julia read described, it is confusing. A word we use to plug holes, a word that is far too short for us. Whatever it is, though, it always begins with mother and child, parent and child, and family attachment. It is the natural bond that encourages nurturing and affection that we so need, first as infants, then as children. It is an instinctive connection that shelters us in the warmth and safety of the home, and that will act to protect us fiercely when needed. At least it should be these things. Our species requires this relationship in order to grow and thrive. Most of us, parents and babes, feel this is love, and it is how we begin to love. If asked what love is, most of us would probably say something along the lines of an intense feeling of deep affection. In other words, love is something one feels. And while I agree that love is an emotion, I know that if it is to really matter, it has to be much more than a feeling. The power of love is expressed in the actions it produces in us. Attraction might start the process and help us to select one with whom we share, but falling in love does not get you very far. We might invest feelings and emotions in another, and expressing these feelings is a big risk, with possibilities of refusal and rejection looming large. So we often woo and romance a bit to encourage a positive reaction. But our feelings do not create a romantic connection until they are reciprocated, until they grow deeper. Love requires mutuality. It goes both ways. A relationship is fragile until the time when both parties come to terms on what it is they are sharing and what they value in sharing with the other, which means most relationships are always a bit fragile. And this is where most of the tension arises over the simple question of what is love and what does it mean? Here is where we hear about differences in gender expectations. Say, men are from Mars and women from Venus, which are unfortunately so deeply encultured in many of us. There is no formula, though, for how a relation should operate, except that both parties should agree on the important stuff. Bell Hooks, who has written brilliantly on love, claims that a love relationship must be a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust, all framed in open and honest communication. This list is imposing. It goes far beyond attraction and affection. It claims that shared love demands building a meaningful and deep relationship. Recall the attachment bond of child to family. It was built on caring and responsibility, and hopefully engendered warm feeling as well. Hooks claims that in addition to this, a true love relationship must also involve direct and open commitment to the other's desires, getting to know the other deeply to develop a strong capacity to empathize with them, showing the other respect as an independent and free person, and building trust between both. She further asserts that if any of these parts are lacking, a relationship cannot be called truly loving. At first, this list of attributes might seem severe, but Hooks developed it by looking at failed and dysfunctional relationships that people, including herself, had once thought of as loving. On the extreme end are abusive partners who somehow hold the other in relationship by claiming that they really love them and need them anyway. Less drastic, but also damaging, is the partner who just can never really hear the needs and wants of the other and is not present for them as they move through their lives. And of course, the partner who lies, deceives, and who acts unfaithfully to the expected norms of the relation is a violation of the relation. All of these failings and others lead to unhappiness, disruption, and great pain. Broken hearts result from loving relationships that are violated and not held in mutual respect. Most of us have suffered breakups, failed relationships, maybe divorces. The emotional costs of failed love, we know, can be disastrous, and they can threaten our self-confidence, our sense of self-worth. This is why we must view love always as a verb, because love is manifest in action, much more than just in feeling. Love is always in process. It is never a static condition. And yet there's another conundrum here. In order to openly enter and build a healthy romantic love relationship, like that which Bell Hooks prescribes, you have to first know yourself, understand your own motives. Most of us seek or sought partnership actively, maybe desperately. We want companionship, love, affection, security, warmth, comfort, and all of the many things we hope a relationship will bring us. Who is surprised that we often deceive ourselves a little, cut a few corners, and compromise a bit when the opportunity for bonding does arise? We all make mistakes, and we hope that the process of dating and trying on relationships fixes most of our more egregious errors. But as in all things, quality romance favors the person who knows themselves. Bell Hooks again, quote, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving. When we can be alone, we can be with others without using them as a means of escape." She then elaborates on this, and this is a longer quote. "One of the best guides to how to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming of receiving from others. There was a time when I felt lousy about my over 40 body, saw myself as too fat, too this or too that. Yet I fantasized about finding a lover who would give me the gift of being loved as I am. It is silly, isn't it, that I would dream of someone else offering to me the acceptance and affirmation I was withholding from myself? This was a moment when the maxim, You can never love anybody if you are unable to love yourself, made clear sense. And I add, do not expect to receive the love from someone else you do not give yourself. End of quote. Some of us might believe that our loves are destined and hold notions like love at first sight. Now, occasions might arise when someone does take your breath away or sweep you off your feet, but that is just part of finding attraction. Creating relationship, remaining in relationship are matters of choice, and we know we should all have the right to choose. You and only you allow a mutual romance or marriage to start, and you and only you allow it to continue. And once more, self-knowledge and security in who you are is by far the best defense against getting stuck. Know your own power. Believe in your own worth. Maybe it's the fact that it is February and Valentine's Day looms near, but I have mostly looked at romantic love and pairing into love relationships thus far. These are important. Romance drives much of our adult lives, but many other things come under the love umbrella as well. And I will now turn to wider notions of love. And as we said at the start, we ask far too much, this one little word. I view love as a basic human connection and an aspiration for what our ties could and should be. Religion has always highlighted love in many ways, from the golden rule to ideas of omnipresent love from the divine, and that God is love. God's love is a very powerful notion. A number of years ago at the Willow Creek Megachurch, which is northwest of Chicago, a service began, staged, with one lonely and unhappy looking girl wandering in a spotlight in an otherwise darkened room. A narrator's voice speaks. Do you feel lost? Do you feel alone? Do you feel that nobody cares and that no one loves you? The girl looks up towards the source of the voice and slowly nods yes. And the voice resumes. Well, you are not alone. God is watching. God knows you and is always with you. And you are not unloved because God loves you. God will always love you. With this, the girl's posture changes. She brightens and she walks gently from the spotlight. End of scene. Now, this is a powerful and clear message, the kind that drew thousands of people that attended that church each week. How can I deliver such reassurance, such a powerful message of belonging, when I am unwilling to offer a handy, omnipresent source of caring to you? Well, I actually think I can make almost the same claim, but I need to rely on the rest of us, you, your fellow congregants, your families and friends, and by extension, all of humanity to deliver the goods. Starting with our attachment to family at birth, we are all connected. Some of the ties are already loving, and all have the potential to hold love. We all need love. We all want to feel love. We just need to activate the loving in these ties. In my mind, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is isolation and loneliness. Hear this very short poem from Alice Walker. Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us, like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck. Love is latent in all of us, embedded, she says. We need to bring it forth, along with its partners, compassion and empathy, the tools of loving connection. Our goal is beloved community of all persons, sharing and working together in common interest and mutual care. And while I know this is aspirational and probably impossible, it is a noble ambition for us, a goal worthy of seeking. Earlier this year, I spoke one morning on St. Paul and 1 Corinthians 13. You might or might not recall, but this passage concluded with, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. I showed initial surprise that Paul gave precedence to love over hope and particularly over faith. But he had concluded that if we all act in love, which he saw as acting in God's will, then we already would attain a heaven on earth. There are many forces that pull us away from loving relationships, that divert our interactions from our best ways of being. After all, love must compete with hatred, selfishness, greed, provincialism, power, fear, and so many other corruptions of human engagement. But love is what will allow us to enter paradise if we can learn to step away from these things that prevent us from opening ourselves and letting love in. I agree with Alice Walker and feel that love is what we all really want, what we really need, and that it is indeed embedded within us like seams of gold waiting to shine in a new light. Let us make this be so.